I think it's first really important that we look at cities on what is actually the city. And I think for me, a city is both public, private sector, it's top down, bottom up. And to really understand how does a city function, what are the building blocks? And if you look at a city, it can be on the one hand, of course, the mayor, vice mayor, city administration, but at the same time, it's probably by far the most interesting and most dense portfolio of assets and investments. And I think getting that understanding on what are the elements you need to bring to the table in terms of what is the value, what is the risk, who has which role and responsibility, that is really key. And I think if you look at the challenge, we of course know we need to intervene in the built environment, in mobility and transport, in water, waste, energy, utilities, all of that. How do we get down to a level where we feel this is where all the actors recognize this is actually my field of play, this is the value I can bring, this is the responsibility I can take. And I think the role of KPMG there is to be really the convening partner, where we bring all the actors around the table to get that language, that agenda right, to really make sure that everybody sees this is actually where we can meet in the middle, in a safe and trusted and operating space, and to really go into that implementation part where we look at investable solutions. And to then also think, it's not only one city, we're talking about more than 10,000 cities worldwide. How do we design those solutions in a way that they're standardized enough to be able to replicate, but also customizable where needed, so that we can take them to the global south, that we can take them to other countries, respecting each and every city's DNA, culture, background, and so on, but also their capacity, of course, their financial situation, to really make sure that we indeed speed and scale up. And I think the last element for me in there, it's not only a city in itself, it's that whole ecosystem, as said, public-private, but also in between cities. What if they could procure together? What if they look at joint investments to really drive that new market and to make sure that if we talk about value and co-benefits, that we address all of them at the same time and not just take the cherries out and then, well, are left over with the cake. I think it's in the end just about trying, and of course that's the easy answer, but we need to take that first step, and we also need to take all the realities into account. If you look at a political term, which is usually around 5, 6, 7 years, we also need to put it against what's the investment cycle, what's the life cycle, for example, infrastructure, to make sure that all these timetables that they meet, and then start thinking on what is then that first step, knowing that everything we do, everything we invest in today will be around for maybe 50, 60, 70 years, to make sure that we do it right from the very start. And that will be key when we convene public-private, but also citizens, universities, and so on, to have that different time frames and not only do the forecasting, not thinking on where are we now and what can we do in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but also thinking back, whether it's from the 2030 scenario or 2050 IPCC scenarios, how much time do we have left and how do we avoid a lock-in and make sure that everything we decide on today, that we do it in an integrated way, in a way that is really future-proofed, to make sure that we don't end up with stranded assets, don't end up in a lock-in, but that we use that collective intelligence to say what is the best we can deliver. But at the end of the day, it will still be a process. We will make mistakes, and we should also embrace that and say, if we don't do that with the right attitude, with even the uncertainty, but especially with the audacity and the leadership to make sure that let's try, and let's get everyone around the table that we think needs to be involved and then see what comes out of there. But I think the process will be important to learn from, to use the feedback and to just do it better and to also replicate it better. I think we've seen in many conferences that we keep saying like there's an issue with finance. And we hear on the other hand that there's the question coming back, but there's no investable projects. So getting that connection right, I think that's also where we as KPMG are involved, to make sure that there's a connection between, on the one hand, challenges, solutions, and also capital. And that requires that you become far more tangible in thinking what is a priority to solve. I mean, we can invest in everything, but what on the long term is going to create the biggest co-benefit, shared value, and return on investment on both the short, mid, and the long term. And to get that set language right in terms of who is willing to take which risk and who is going to take that first step. And there we need to go far more to blended finance constructions, to also go to blended solutions, and to see what can the government deliver in terms of not only money, but especially in terms of investment, because it's investing in society in the long term, but also providing guarantee that other people feel invited to jump on board and say, we can also contribute that. But we should steer away from the fact that we keep saying there's enough money. We just need to translate it in the right way, that we not only see the investment, but also what is the return on the longer period to make sure that everybody feels really connected and invested. And I think there as KPMG, it's really crucial that we keep that long-term perspective into account, but that we also try to address the language that people need to get involved and to bring that common agenda to say, this is really a common story. How do we build that ecosystem, which will be, by definition, public-private, to make sure that we will deliver on time at the speed and the scale that the world needs?